Hello everyone, Mr. Minnick's my name, math is my game. Today's a special day. Today is Welsh Rarebit Day. Some toast with some melted cheese on it. It sounds really good right about now. But anyway, today we're going to talk about talking. We're going to think about thinking. We're going to learn about learning. We're going to write about writing. We're going to take notes about taking notes. So this very first page, this first slide, if you would, it's got different themes to it, and we'll see if we can figure out the themes along the way. There's some images. There's an image of, on the top left, we probably haven't seen some of those in about 8 years, some of us. What is that? Desktop computer. Who uses a desktop computer nowadays? Anybody? People who like to have a powerful computer, who like to sit at a desk, who, I don't know, imagine carrying one of those around with you class to class. Wouldn't that be awesome? show up with it. Okay. What's the next picture? I can't tell. I don't own one of those. I have nothing, well, I do have a lot against the company Apple. That's another story. I won't get into that. I don't think iPads are a bad thing. I just don't own one yet because I'm afraid if I buy one Apple product, that I'm going to want to buy every Apple product. So I haven't yet bought an Apple product. The next item up for bids there looks like some kind of smartphone. If I had to guess, I'd say that's a Samsung. Yeah, on the left it looks like a Galaxy. And then what's that supposed to be on the far right? The what? The internet. Last night my nephew was talking to me about the deep web. That's something I'm going to have to look into, but maybe not too much. Yeah. All right. So up next then, on the far left, what do we got over there? A teacher. Now, most of you probably know I don't call myself a teacher. I call myself an educator. I'm not the overlord. As a matter of fact, it's ironic that it is very ironic that my Twitter handle is @themathoverlord, because I don't see myself as that overlord. Every period it's higher and higher. I might have to put books up next time. Imagine being this tall. Could you imagine being this tall? Different perspective on things. So I don't see myself as imparting knowledge on you. And some of you might remember this. If you haven't been in my class in a few years, maybe you never heard my philosophy in education. It's this. You know how your parents say, well, you're a little know-it-all. Anybody ever hear that? Well, you are. There was a philosopher by the name of Plato, and he believes that knowledge is perfect, and he believes that everybody has knowledge in their brain. And that everybody knows everything. Think about this. Anybody in here golf? You're trying to drive, and you're trying to hit the driver, and you're trying to hit it straight. And you swing, and it slices right. And you change something, and it slices left. And you change something, and you hit the club head into the ground. And you change something, and you barely hit the top of the ball with the club head. And you change something, and you slice right. And you change something, and you slice left. And you change something, and you hit it straight as an arrow, and it goes 20 yards. And then you go take lessons, and your instructor shows you what to do and tells you what to do, and it still doesn't work. And then you go meet Tiger Woods, and he shows you what to do, and it still doesn't work. And you keep at it, and one day, what happens? You hit it a mile, you hit it a ton, you hit it 300 yards, and you're like, oh, I could do that all along, and you do it one right after the other, right? Maybe it's not golf. Maybe it's like that with solving quadratic equations. Maybe it's like that with factoring. Maybe it's like that with finding the standard deviation of something. The point is, at some point, you're going to have that aha moment, that moment where you say, I knew how to do this all along. Yeah, that knowledge is locked away. So rather than me purveying knowledge to you, it's a matter of unlocking that knowledge. Does that make a little bit of sense? Along the way, there's different avenues through which learning can happen. There are, if we had to lump these, what would we call these things that help us learn? Devices, tools maybe, right? They're tools in learning. And so if we kind of keep that in mind, then maybe this next row would be people who can help us learn, right? So it looks like we have some kind of tutoring session going on there. Anybody know what that next thing is? ECOT, what that's all about? Online school. Okay, so the facilitators of that class might be places where you could learn. Let's see what else we got. On the left over here, looks like we've got, yeah, that's the old Math Excel screen. There's the newer, those are a little outdated. I really need to update that. Google, that's updated because Google's got a new picture. What about this guy? Who knows who that is? Who can tell us who that is? Who can say who that is? Here's a hint. Here's a hint. What'd we say? Khan, yeah, Khan Academy. I love watching Khan Academy videos because the guy says the same thing 3 times. Okay, today, what we'll do today is we'll take the number 5. The number 5. Not 4, not 6, but 5. And we'll add it, we'll add it, we'll add it, we'll find the sum with another number, the number 2. Not 1, not 3, the number 2. The number 2, okay? So we're going to add 5 to 2. We're going to add 5 and 2. So let's see what happens when we add 5 and 2. Now, if we look at the number 5, if we look at the number 5, if we look at the number 5, we could write the number 5 using, some people call these a stroke of the pen, a stroke. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. And of course, when we get the 5th one, there's 5, okay? There's 5. All right, there's 5. Now, in addition, what do you think? What do you think of that? Isn't that great? Isn't that how he talks? Okay. Okay, so we got Khan Academy. Khan Academy's good stuff, right? Certainly a good resource for learning. Maybe that's a website, maybe it's a resource. I don't know what you want to call those things. Okay. Oh, what's that on the left? Some of you might have had one of those. Textbook, yeah. One student just came and got one of those last period. Last year, a few students took me up on that. Got a hard copy of the book. For statistics, I don't have a hard copy of the book. I'm sorry. Wolfram Alpha, Mathway. Oh, interesting thing about Mathway. Some people might think I'm going to say don't use Mathway. I won't. We'll talk about Mathway later. What about the thing on the right? What's that? So graphing calculator. Again, this picture's a little dated. That's actually a TI Inspire. Okay, the TI Inspires. We'll be using those extensively this year. Whoa, talk about going way back in time. What's that on the left? Tape recorder. What kind of tape does that take? That one of those little mini cassettes, right? Or micro cassettes, I think they call them. And then to the right of the micro cassette recorder, we've got. I see quite a few of them. I like them. I like it a lot. What is it called? Spiral notebook? I could tell you a story about a spiral notebook, but not today. But I will. And then what do we got? Pens, and let's keep on scrolling down and see what other images we've got here. Oh, there's a pencil. What's this thing? Encyclopedia. And then down here, it looks like we've got a classroom, and over here, looks like can you learn anything eating lunch? Not to eat, or what not to eat? Like you don't want the spinach. I was feeling real brave one day, and I'm not saying anything bad about the school or its food, but the one day I said, you know what? I need to be like Popeye. I need to eat my spinach, and I got it. Bad mistake. Really bad. I thought I was going to be able to tough it out. Anyway, bad mistake. What about the bus? I learned this on the bus. What happens when you get to the railroad tracks? You got to put your finger on the little rivet that holds the bus panels together, right, on the screw. Do they still do that? It's a superstition, right? You got to, yeah. I don't know why, but you just do. So over here, looks like we got, what's that with the blue thing? A garage down in the bottom right corner. It looks like we have some kind of subject. Spanish, maybe. And then we've got a shop room, and then we've got a picture of a house. Science, English, math, and what about that image here? What are these 5 windows? What's that? That's us right there, isn't it? That's room 203. That's kind of cool. So all these images mean something. The next to last row, that's where you can learn. Actually, the ones above that too. You can learn at school. You could learn at home. You could learn in the garage. I've actually learned a lot in the garage, more than you could imagine. I tell you what, never, ever, 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 ever try to remove ball joints from an E150 using a blowtorch without first removing the grease zerks. Trust me on that. Never take the radiator cap off of a car that's hot. That's a good one too. Okay? So again, today we're going to be talking about learning about learning. Okay, learning about learning. So the information that's going to come up, anything that's typed up, that's pre-typed, it's not my words. It comes from Western Texas A&M University, and this is what they tell their freshmen. They say, if you want to be successful in math class, you'll do these things. Now, when I got to college, and I got my first C, and I almost had a heart attack, and I cried, and I said, I got to get my 3.5, I lose my scholarship. I had to learn how to study for the first time in my life, because I didn't have to study. I was blessed that in high school I didn't really have to study that hard. When I got to college, I had to learn how real quick. So these things will help you be a successful math student, successful in other classes, if you apply them, if you think about them, if you listen to them. So here's just an introduction. In this day and age, it's clear to see that there are a plethora of, what's that word mean? A whole bunch, muchos, many. There are a whole bunch of learning media, tools, platforms, what have you. Also, moreover, there are tons of places where learning can occur. And finally, there are many concepts for one to learn. Spanish, English, math, woodshop. I never took woodshop. Maybe I should have. Maybe I wouldn't have almost cut my toe off when I was 19. Almost cut my toe off. A circular saw bit me. Maybe I'll make a drawing of it before the video's over. It was pretty gruesome. It was pretty gruesome. So in this lesson, we're not going to focus on what my big toe looked like when I, okay, I'll do the drawing now. What the heck? Here we go. Shout out to Mr. Minnick, and shout out to Mr. Minnick's high school art teacher, Mrs. Toth, who taught him to draw. I should show you what my friend's toes look like, because he's got the weirdest looking toes. So that's my right foot, okay? And I'm just going to draw the first 2 toes. So here's where the knuckle is, right? Like the toe knuckle. And then here's where the knuckle is. That's called a Morton's toe when your second toe's longer. You know what that says you're supposed to do? You're supposed to be a teacher if your second toe's longer. Did you know that? Somebody said their second toe's longer and they're not meant to be a teacher. You never know. You never know. So here's what happened. I was cutting with the circular saw, and I had shoes on, and anyway, the saw blade hit my shoe, and I didn't think anything happened until I started walking, and I heard it go quick, 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 and my shoe, I looked down, and my shoe was wide open, and I could see bones and sawdust and ligaments, and yeah, the circular saw went that far through my toe, like 3/4 of the way through it. It was funny at the emergency room. They had to X-ray it, and they used duct tape to tape my other toes out of the way so they could get a good X-ray of it. And the X-ray, it made the Hall of Fame at Robinson Memorial. They hung it up on. It's probably still up there to this day. It was pretty neat. Well, so the X-ray, you know, it had this image. So, when it's a bone, it would be a bone with, a void in it, like that, basically, more or less. So it was pretty neat. They couldn't do anything to it. All they did was they irrigated it really well, and they stitched it back up, and they gave me a boot. And the doctor said this really made me mad. Oh, you're not athletic. I was 19. I didn't do any competitive sports, but I still played basketball. They said, you'll never dunk a basketball again. They said, you'll never sprint as fast as you used to again. 3 weeks later, I was actually back out on the basketball court dunking on it. Probably shouldn't have started that early, but all they did was just closed it up and let it heal. Yeah. It's funny because I can bend it back, but I can't bend it forward. Like if the ligament's shortened and it won't go the whole way down. So anyway. So these are the things that Western Texas A&M says to do. Attend class, not part-time, but full-time. Every year I always talk about transmissions when this comes up. This won't be an exception. Math is a sequential subject. I'm actually really excited to talk about transmissions today because I drove my new, to me, car today, and guess what kind of transmission it has? It's a Manuel transmission. Who's Manuel? It's a guy my dad worked with. So a Manuel transmission, I have a 6-speed, and to get into reverse, it takes a miracle. But reverse is there. First is, whoa, that's first. Why did I make it 2? There's first. Here's second. Here's third. Here's fourth. Here's fifth. And here's sixth. Okay? Where's neutral? Neutral is that big, long, horizontal line in the middle. That's all neutral. So there's a Manuel transmission. And who in here rides dirt bikes? What kind of dirt bike? A 65? Nice. So that's a manual shift. 1 down, how many up? 1 down, 3 up. So it's a 4-speed gearbox. So first is on the bottom, neutral, second, third, fourth, like that. Awesome. Cool. So that's actually known as a sequential gearbox. So if you're on that little 65 dirt bike and you're riding and you want to go from first gear to fourth gear, you can't jump from first directly to fourth without first going past neutral into second, into third, and fourth. Now you can hold the clutch in the whole time and try to jump all the way up to fourth, but the deal is you can't get to fourth without having gone through the other gears. Does that make a little bit of sense? Yeah, it's tough on the transmission. The engine, if you do that, it's bad. So the cool thing about a manual transmission is this. When I drive my 6-speed, I'll take off in first gear. And most people, do we want the sound effects? Most people will do this. You know, you got to give it a little bit of gas, ease out of the clutch, and they'll go, whoom, 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 whoom. They're really bad at shifting. That's why it takes that long. Shouldn't take that long, so let's try that again. Whoom, 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 whoom. Right? That's how it goes. Now, the cool thing about a non-sequential transmission, kind of like statistics. Statistics is a little bit different than Algebra 2 in the fact that we can skip around a little bit, and it's okay. In Algebra 2, you needed to know the fundamental theorem of algebra before you can solve equations the right way. You need to know number systems before you can solve equations because you can't even talk about numbers because you don't know what they are. In stats, we could kind of jump ahead to frequency distributions, but there's certain things we need to lay down. So anyway, real quick, in stats, sometimes we might jump from one concept here to this one. And actually, I can drive my car like that. I do. You want to hear how that goes? Actually, I do it like this. I start in second. So I'll start in second. And in my advanced class, that's what they're going to do. They're skipping over all of Chapter 1 entirely because I'm assuming that they already know Chapter 1. Anyway, if we start in second, I'm going from second right to fifth. You ready? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, how it goes. So if you jump too far ahead, it's kind of slow going at first, right? So anyway, math is sequential. Be there all the time. Don't miss out on any of the crucial parts you need. I got a 2013 Chevy Cruze. So with math class, with social studies, with science, with English, keep up with the homework. Keep up with the homework. Yeah, I got a new water bottle this year. I went to the Rocky distributing warehouse, and that's all I bought. I didn't buy boots. I bought a water bottle. So keeping up with the Kardashians. No, I mean keeping up with the homework. One thing that's going to, in stats class, we have time in class to do the homework, so there's really no excuse. I will be in your grill, so to speak, if you're not using class time effectively, because I really want everybody to have time in class to work on it. But my other classes, the Math Excel, you really get, that's going to be independent on you to keep up with the homework. Okay. Homework is kind of like it's kind of like doing a mile-long wheelie. Yes. Have I ever done a mile? I did a 2-mile-long wheelie one time. The most impressive wheelie of my life. Now, some of you might know that I like motorcycles. I used to have pictures of my motorcycle in here, and they're not there anymore. I don't know what happened to my motorcycle pictures. Hey, there's SpongeBob. So anyway, the deal with the mile-long wheelie is this. I could tell you I can do a mile-long wheelie on my bike. Yeah. I just pop up the clutch, pop it up doing 50, and there we go. Just ride it out a mile. You're not going to believe me until I prove it. And homework's kind of like where you can prove that you know how to do something. Oh, yeah, Mr. Minnick, you know what? I know how to find the standard deviation of something. I know how to find the standard deviation of something. Oh yeah, we'll prove it. Let's see you do it. Let's. Oh, I'm not done with this. I know how to write the standard deviation formula. I really do. Oh yeah, we'll prove it. Okay, I'll prove it. I just got to move some things over because I've messed this up. Here we go. There we go. I can find the standard deviation of something. Prove it. Where do you have an opportunity to prove it? In the homework. And the cool thing is, in the homework, you can prove it before you take the test or the quiz, right? The homework's a little bit safer area. It's kind of like if anybody ever wanted to do a backflip. I'd go to Travis Pastrana's house. Pastrana. You say Pastrana, I say Pastrana. And let's do a backflip into the foam pit. Let's do about 100 into the foam pit before we try landing on dirt, huh? Homework is that. Homework is doing a backflip into the foam pit. The quiz is doing a backflip to dirt. And the test is doing a backflip to pavement in front of thousands of people on live TV. Does that make sense? So, anyway. What else? Try to understand the math problems. Math is enigmatic to some people. What's that word mean, enigmatic? A puzzle. They don't get it. They're like, oh no. Oh no. Some of you are looking at that standard deviation formula and you're saying, oh no. Or maybe you were saying like the no cat. Oh no, 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 no. Anybody ever see the no cat? Oh no, 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 no. Oh no, 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 no. Oh no, 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 no. Try to understand the problem. When we get to this formula, we're going to break it down step by step, and it's a foreign language. You probably are thinking to yourself, okay, I know what X means. I know what it means to square something. I know what it means to divide by something. And I know how to take a square root, but the rest of that? Oh, no, 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 no. It's a foreign language, right? So try to understand what's being asked of you. When you do the homework problems, ask yourself, okay, what am I looking for? What known quantities do I have? What numbers can I replace these variables with? Don't just follow the example. Find out why you're doing what you're doing. Find out exactly that a standard deviation means that you're finding out on average. Hold on a minute. Average. Isn't an average a mean? And when you find the mean of something, what do you do with the numbers? You add them up, right? You add them up. So what do you suppose this symbol means? You add And what do you suppose this symbol means? You add what? You add the numbers, right? And this is the numbers. So anyway, all this stuff, very clear, very helpful. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. If you follow the what, the how, the whys, you'll know what to do when you see a similar problem later. Any questions about that? Real quick, the square root of 450, I used this one first period. Let's go to Mathway. I'm not going to say don't use Mathway, okay? But if we go to Mathway, I'm going to say don't use Mathway as a crutch. Now in statistics, Mathway is not going to help nearly as much as it would in Algebra 2 or Algebra 2A. I wanted to go to Mathway. Mathway. Let's go back here for a second. This says, you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Part of math is understanding what the directions mean from you. So what do we got? We got the square root of 450. Okay? Mathway, look what Mathway wants to do. Mathway wants to evaluate that. I want you to simplify that. In other words, I want you to write that in simplest radical form. I'll never, ever, ever forget teaching integrated math class years and years ago here. It was so great. But let's suppose we had something like this. Suppose we had something like that, and I didn't give you any directions. What would you do with that? What would you assume that you have to do with that? Do what? Factor it? Possibly. If it's factorable, what else might you be able to do with that? Find the variable? Maybe. I'm hearing slope. It actually would have a non-constant slope, a changing slope, which is something you'd study in calc or pre-calc. What else could you do? Maybe make a picture, because a picture's worth 1,000 words, and graph it, huh? So the deal is you got to make sure you know what you're trying to do. If we wanted to simplify, we would need to know that we're simplifying it. Not calculate the square root, but simplify that. Really? Simplify that. There we go. Anybody know what that is? The square root of 450? What, rad 5? 20 rad 5? No, but that's a good try. It is something rad something. We'll come back to that. Okay. Before we go any further, are there any questions up to this point? Comments? Concerns? Short debates? Long debates? This lesson kind of reminds me of what happened last Saturday when I was over at my mom's house. I was going through some old things in the attic, and I found my boomerang. And I went to the backyard. She's got a really nice backyard. I've been mowing it. And I threw it, and I threw it, and I threw it. I couldn't remember the right way to throw it, but eventually it came back to me. That was a bad joke. Sorry. That was a bad joke. Sorry. It's just a pun. Just a play on words. Check homework assignments. In stats, you'll know right away if you're right or not. When you use Math Excel, you'll know right away if you're right or not. That's kind of cool. If we ever do a written homework assignment, if you're in my Algebra 2 or 2A class, it never fails. There's always somebody not literally picking their nose, because that's gross. Well, maybe some people do. I don't know. But anyway, people will pick their nose. They'll pretend like I don't see them texting their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their mom or their dad or their aunt or their uncle, whoever they're texting. They will look at their can of Monster. They will stare off into space. They will think about how hot it is in this room. They'll do anything in their power to not pay attention during the homework and what the answers were. That doesn't make any sense to me. Imagine I'm trying to do that mile-long wheelie, right? And I do that wheelie, but I don't measure it. If I don't measure it, do I know that it was a mile long? If I don't videotape it, if I don't get out a yardstick and measure it, I don't know how long it was. A yardstick and measure out a mile, that'd be a lot of measuring. What's 5,280 divided by 3? Still a lot. Like 160 or more? More than 160 anyway. Yeah. No, more than 1,600. Yeah, like more than 1,700. It's somewhere around there. Yeah, that's a lot of flipping over the yardsticks. Anyway, the point is, when you check your homework, that's actually measuring that, right? Okay. So when we do the homework assignment and when we go over the homework assignments, make sure that you're paying attention during that. Make sure you pay attention in class. In my other classes, I name dropped. I'm going to do it again. Anybody remember the name of the student who sat right here? He was this was several years ago. He was about 6'5". It was 7th period about 4 years ago. He was 6'5". He usually asked good questions, but sometimes he had crazy ideas that didn't quite make sense. His last name started with an S, actually. So, anyway, never, ever, ever left. And one day he said, "Mr. Minnick, I got to go pee really bad." And I said, "Yeah, go to the bathroom." And up to that point, he was all over the lesson. He came back 2 minutes later, and throughout the last 15 minutes of class, he just looked like a lost puppy. At the end of class, it was Ben Stratton. I said, "Ben, what's wrong?" He's like, "Mr. Minnick, I got to tell you. I usually understand what's going on in your class because I pay attention, I take notes, and I listen. But I was only gone for 2 minutes. For 2 minutes. And I came back, I had no idea what you were talking about. I'm never leaving your class again." So pay attention in class. I know sometimes it's hard to pay attention. I know sometimes you're thinking about making a grilled cheese sandwich wrapped in bacon. But make sure you're paying attention in class. That grilled bacon and cheese, I made it. It's amazing. We're going to talk about it several times this year. They're great sandwiches. So this don't talk in class. When I first saw this information, they had a picture of one student talking to another student. And here's what happens. Sometimes you'll have a question, and I'll answer it. And for whatever reason, it goes in one ear and out the other because you don't like me, because I smell that day, because the tone of my voice doesn't register with your brain. My sister, did I ever tell you about my sister getting her picture taken? Every other yearbook picture, smiling, frowning, smiling, frowning. My sister hated men. And whenever she got her picture taken by a man, she was frowning. And if a woman took a picture, she had a really nice smile. Some people just don't relate to people. Some people just don't like a certain type of person. And it's nothing personal. It's just maybe something happened in your life where you were mistreated by a man, by a woman, by somebody that looks like me, by somebody that sounds like me. And so when I talk, it just doesn't sit well with you. So you would rather hear the same information from somebody else. Does that make sense? If that's the case, fine, but hold that until after the lesson. Last year, I'm not going to name drop, but last year there was one student who helped many other students in my classes and other classes. And I'm going to say this, 60% of the information that this student shared with the other students was accurate and sound. 50% of the time. Yeah. I'm not going to name drop, not going to even say the gender of the person. I appreciate the fact that they wanted to learn by helping somebody else, but the deal is your instructor is going to know pertinent to the class, probably the better answer. I'm not saying your peers are idiots. I'm not saying your peers are idiots. I'm saying if there's something you're not sure of and you want a clear answer, ask the instructor. Not saying don't ask your friends, just be careful of that. Okay. Read the math textbook and study guide. Let's go online real quick and let's go to Math Excel. I'm in Math Excel. I'm logged in, I think, as I don't know where I'm logged in, but anyway, if I go to a particular homework assignment, for instance, and I'm working on a homework question, and I would like some assistance. Some of the screens look a little bit different in Math Excel. For stats, this stuff over here isn't there. There's a help drop-down menu that you click first, and then it'll bring all that up. Okay. So anyway, you can click on textbook there, and it will take you to that particular section of the textbook. Okay. What else? Going back, close out of that. Read the textbook, read the study guide. When you get to college, there's going to be all kinds of books you have to buy. It's horrible. You got to buy the book, you got to buy the workbook, and you got to buy the study guide. 3 books for one class. You could spend like $600, $700, $800, $900 on books for one class. One class. Are there any questions? How much did I spend on books? I went to college back in the 90s for the most part, so I didn't spend much on books. But now they're not cheap. Are there any other questions? There should be. Homework and test on Math Excel? Yeah. For stats, yeah. For Algebra 2, it's half of them are on Math Excel and half of them are written. Oh, so you're working ahead using Math Excel. I'm glad you asked. Glad you asked. So in Math Excel, if you are at the student course page, which is what you'll see here, there will be a tab that says study plan. And if you click that study plan tab, check this out. You might say, well, it only shows me a couple sections. Well, you can view all chapters. From the study plan, you can view all chapters. So if you want to see where we're going in this class, what chapter 4 is going to be, there you go. Now this is for a different class, but you can work ahead and get an idea section by section what all is coming in the future. Okay, so that study plan, make sure you're checking that out. Okay, good. Thank you for asking. Shout out to Austin Mangieri for reading my mind. Another shout out to Travis Gibson for reading my mind. Another shout out to the future Mr. Minnick for being such a cool guy and having such great jokes. Shout out to 923. Take notes and study them. We're almost done here. Take notes and study them. I see so many people, they take notes. They come to me the next day, Mr. Minnick, I didn't get the homework. What do you mean you didn't get it? Did I not give it? No, I got it, but I didn't understand it. Did you try it? Well, yeah, but I didn't get it. Did you look over your notes? Oh, no, I didn't think to do that. What do you think we have a 51-minute lesson for? For me to give you stuff to write down on the paper so you look busy when Mr. Dobin walks by? Use your notes as a reference when studying and trying new homework and studying. Okay. Ask questions in class. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. The instructor will not make fun of you. In fact, at least one other person may have the same question. There are stupid questions. There are inappropriate questions. And I'd like to keep the fair majority of our questions pertinent to the course content. Not to say I don't like to talk about making grilled cheese sandwiches, but in the constraints of time, we do need to get through the lesson. So be sure to ask questions in class, okay? Wait a minute, that's a different background, and it says ask questions in class. Let's see what the next slide has in store for us. Next slide. Wait a minute. Previous slide. Previous slide. It says the same thing. Ask questions in class. You think that's important? Whoa! Ask questions outside of class. That's good too. In class, if I could for a minute, going back to in class, they talk about wait time. In education, when you're studying to be a teacher, they talk about wait time. You know, they say 30 seconds is a good number. I like to take it a little bit further than that. I'll give it a minute. If you don't think a minute is a long enough wait time, think again. If you don't think a minute's a long time, think again. I'll give you a minute before I move on to the next idea to ask a question, okay? Ask questions. Finally, the expectation in all my classes is this. Students are expected to succeed, okay? Through study, through practice, through test preparation, asking questions when unclear about concepts, blah, 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 okay? So the expectation is that you succeed. This lesson, you might have said, well, I didn't learn anything. Well, I hope you did. Maybe you learned that I cut my toe when I was 19. Maybe you learned that I can tell bad jokes. Either way, a 5-point assignment, it's due first thing tomorrow. What I'd like you to do is this. Doesn't have to be paragraph form. You can use bullet points, whatever. Tell me 3 things that you learned from this or from today. 2 things that you liked about it, and 1 thing that you're curious about as far as this class is concerned. So what now? Oh, my toe. Well, you can ask that, and I'll answer it on your paper if you ask that. My toe is about 88% right now. That happened a long time ago. But 2 things you liked, 3 things you learned, 1 thing you're curious about. Any last questions, comments, concerns, short debates, long debates? If not, it's been real, it's been fun, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Doug.